A U.S. attack on a charity hospital in Afghanistan that left 42 people dead was not a war crime. That's the conclusion of a Pentagon investigation which determined the October strike was unintentional, the result of human error and equipment failures. 16 U.S. service members have been disciplined as a result, but none will face criminal charges. We'll delve deeper into the findings right after this news summary. A protest and an endorsement stole much of the show in Republican presidential politics today. John Yang begins our coverage.
A melee today as protesters and police clashed outside the hotel hosting the California Republican Party convention. The scheduled speaker, frontrunner Donald Trump. Because of the commotion, the candidate had to take the long way in.
That was not the easiest entrance I've ever made. My wife called, she said, there are helicopters following you, and we did, and then we went under a fence and through a fence, and oh boy, I felt like I was crossing the border, actually, you know, it's true.
It's his second straight day in the state, and the second day marred by protests. 17 people were arrested outside his rally last night in Orange County.
Live from the heartland and
From a hotly contested Indiana, the state's top Republican, Governor Mike Pence, told Republican listeners who won his coveted endorsement.
I'm not against anybody, but I will be voting for Ted Cruz in the upcoming Republican primary. I see Ted Cruz as a principled conservative who's dedicated his career to advocating the Reagan agenda, and I'm pleased to support him.
The Texas senator is banking on a good showing in the Hoosier State next week.
We have a choice. Do we want to get behind a campaign that is based on yelling and screaming and cursing and insults? Or do we want to unite behind a positive, optimistic, forward-looking, conservative campaign based on real solutions to the problems in this country?
Democrat Bernie Sanders is also hoping for a good result in Indiana. Today he had tough words for a major employer in Indianapolis, its now shuttered factory, providing the backdrop.
Today we are sending a very loud and clear message to the CEO of United Technologies. Stop the greed. Stop destroying the middle class in America. Respect your workers. Respect the American people.
Sanders, though, is still the underdog for the nomination, trailing Hillary Clinton by about 300 pledged delegates, by 800 if you count superdelegates. Clinton ended her two-day break from the public eye in New York City talking race and education.
Given the right circumstances, given the appropriate adult involvement and attention, every child can succeed. And we have got to believe that, and we've got to invest in that.
In 2008, Clinton beat then-Senator Obama in the Indiana primary. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm John Yang.
We'll take a closer look at the presidential race, including the key role individual delegates will play in selecting a nominee later in the program. In Syria, fresh violence rocked the war-torn city of Aleppo today. Insurgents shelled a mosque in a government-held neighborhood, killing at least 15 people. Meanwhile, a new air raids hit rebel-controlled areas of Aleppo, while the death toll from Wednesday's strike on a hospital rose to 50. All that as the U.S. and Russia tried to reinforce a ceasefire in a Damascus suburb and in the port city of Latakia.
We want to focus on strengthening the cessation of hostilities, renewing it, reaffirming it, so that we can quell the fighting or the violations, the ongoing violations in these areas. We're fully aware that Aleppo is a trouble spot, but we're starting here.
Violence in and around Aleppo has claimed the lives of more than 200 people in just the last 8 days. North Korea's Supreme Court has sentenced a Korean-American businessman to 10 years of hard labor after finding him guilty of spying and stealing state secrets. Kim Dong-chul appeared today in court in Pyongyang. He was handcuffed and could be seen wiping away tears. Kim is the second American imprisoned by North Korea this year. The U.S. reported its first Zika virus-related death today. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said that a 70-year-old man in Puerto Rico died from complications from the mosquito-borne virus. The U.S. territory has at least 683 confirmed Zika cases. 65 of those are pregnant women. Vice President Biden visited the Vatican today and called for a global commitment to the fight against cancer. His appearance was part of the Vatican's conference on regenerative medicine. The vice president met Pope Francis and in a speech urged philanthropists, corporations, and governments to increase cancer research funding.
As we stand on the cusp of unprecedented scientific and technological change, of amazing discoveries that were once unimaginable breakthroughs, we cannot forget that real lives and real people are at the heart and the reason for all that we do.
The vice president's elder son died of brain cancer last year. Months later, Mr. Biden declared a, quote, moonshot to cure cancer when he announced he would not run for president. The Eurozone has bounced back to pre-recession levels after an 8-year financial crisis. Its economy unexpectedly doubled in the first 3 months of this year. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, stocks fell after the U.S. economy recorded its slowest pace of growth in 2 years. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 57 points to close at 17,773. The Nasdaq fell nearly 30, and the S&P 500 dropped 10. For the week, both the Dow and the S&P 500 lost more than 1%. The Nasdaq fell nearly 3%. And a treasure trove of ancient Roman coins has been unearthed in southern Spain. Construction workers made the discovery while laying pipes in a small town outside Seville. The 1,300 pounds of bronze and silver-coated coins had been stored in clay jugs. Archaeologists say they date back to the late 4th century, when Romans ruled the region.
We had already seen coins like this, but what is incredible is the discovery of this dimension. There are 19 jugs full. I can assure you that the jugs cannot be lifted by one person because of all the weight and the quantity of the coins inside. So now what we have to do is begin to understand the historical and archaeological context of this discovery.
Researchers believe the coins had been stored away to pay soldiers or civil servants.